Exercise or not? That is the question. In this presentation, I will talk about the aspects that determine why some individuals engage in physical activity and why others choose not to. The found knowledge that will be presented throughout the presentation will help develop a plan that will work with the individual and might help them jumpstart their way into performing physical activity. The overall focus will be that which causes any internal and external reasoning to engaging in physical activity. The targeted audience for this presentation will be those who are between the ages of 21 to 30 who choose not to exercise and those who do, specifically individuals who do not perform any physical activity and those who are moderately to always physically active. Engaging in physical activity should be something that one can enjoy and the advantages one can get out of it. It doesn't have to be about losing weight or doing so because one needs to stay on the next fad diet. Physical activity is part of life that keeps the body balanced and helps one stay healthy, not a task that needs to be done because one was told to do so. So, what are some of the reasons as to why people don't exercise? There are three main focuses that were chosen in order to find out the general idea as to why someone might choose not to exercise. The first focus is finding the individual's external reasoning by determining their peers, financial background, and location. The second focus will be finding the internal reasoning of the individual by determining their drive to exercise, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And the last focus will be understanding why an individual might choose to exercise. Individuals who often do not find enjoyment in exercise are not alone. They are frequently found with others who share the same taste as them. But why is that? It can be due to the fact of conforming to the majority and not wanting to feel rejected. Most individuals want to fit in, and that can sometimes stop them from making the right decisions in life. An article by Zaki talked about the choices we make in life are mostly due to the fear of rejection from our peers. An example would be the groups that are developed in high school. There are multiple groups in high school that share certain interests in common, but sometimes it's people who just want to fit in. So they shape themselves to be the same. Often people tend to hang with the same group they have things in common with. That can also not only affect their present, but their future as well. Knowing who a person's peers are can help point out some of the reasons why they are not engaging in physical activity. Our peers are not the only ones who influence what we do. In the case of not engaging in physical activity, it's not always a choice. There's the fact of not being financially stable enough to enjoy one's life. When you are not financially stable, finances must be used wisely. An example would be buying the proper food needed to keep up with physical training so the body can be in perfect balance. When training the body or engaging in physical activity, the proper foods need to be put into the body for good results. However, if one is not financially stable, they cannot get the proper food or vitamins, and that can have a negative effect on the body. Another reasoning can be the location that an individual is residing in. Location plays a huge part in how and when one can get place to place. If someone lives in a rural area, most of the time stores and businesses close early because not many live there. However, if they live in the city, they can stay up late because a lot of places are open 24 hours. There is also the physical obstacles that can get in the way. One study by Dishman found that individuals who have many environmental factors that cause hardship can affect their will to exercise in a negative way. When they are faced with a certain determinant, it can play a huge part in their decision of their well-being. An example can be the use of transportation. If an individual owns a car, their power to travel anywhere is endless. But if an individual does not own a car, it is. If there are no places in the area that one can participate in physical activity, they may need to travel a further distance just to get there. And knowing that a place is far from reach can cause an individual to give up due to the distance. Finding the internal reasoning to exercising. A reasoning as to why some might not find the motive to engage in physical activity can be due to a certain mental state. Every mind is different and functions differently, but often functions in the same way. Individuals who find no interest in physical activity may think in the same way. They may think in a way where they see no reason to exercising and are perfectly fine with that. But maybe with some persuasion and approaching them in a different way, they can be convinced to change their mind. Taking an approach that may be fitting for them can change their mindset. Another topic that can be talked about when knowing why an individual sees no drive in engaging in physical activity can be a physical problem within themselves. They can have a physical disability that may hinder them to perform certain movements. But sometimes with disabilities, physical activity can help improve the overall function that one can have, or sometimes keep strength in what can no longer function properly. One can convince them to try a different approach to exercise, such as a modified version. With the modified version, it can be done so that the individual can perform the exercise in the way they feel most comfortable in. They can go to at their own pace, set the intensity, and even the duration of the exercise. Not only can there be a mental and physical cause, but there can also be an emotional one. Emotionally, the individual might find that they don't look right or they feel that people will judge them. In a study by Macaulay, it measured the self esteem of middle aged participants who partook in a 20-week program that encouraged physical activity. The results showed that the middle-aged individuals presented signs of increased self-esteem. This program helped the individuals to feel comfortable in their own body and to feel good about themselves. If one does not feel good about themselves, then they will not have the drive to push themselves nor participate in any form of physical activity. Most people choose to perform in physical activity on a day-to-day occurrence because it makes them feel good, and they get the positive advantages they are looking for. Advantages such as a healthy lifestyle, the wanted body, and the feeling of being energized. Not only does this help in the present, but also in the future. Exercise can play a huge part in a person's physical well-being throughout their lifetime. Physical activity not only can affect a person physically, but mentally too. The mental well-being of the individual who engages in physical activity are what one might call stable and focused. Individuals who choose to engage in physical activity stay focused throughout the day because their body is awake and full of energy. The perfect example of those who are helped mentally by physical activity are college students. As stress is a key ingredient in a college student's life, they must find a way to distress themselves, and exercising is one of the healthier ways in doing so. Plus, there's the fact that physical activity causes one to sleep better at night, and college students and those between the ages of 21 to 30 also like that too. Also, physical activity has helped many when they're in a bad shape, such as the well being of one's mental state without the need for medication. An example are those who might suffer from depression and anxiety. They are likely to suffer less due to physical activity because the feel good endorphins released from the brain act as a natural anti anxiety and antidepressant. And determining how a person's mood is can determine the needed exercise plan. For those who feel anxiety, a nice and easy yoga session might do. For those who feel depressed, a resistance training workout plan would do. So, what are some of the benefits to engaging in physical activity, and how does it help an individual mentally? And here are some ways that might help a person kickstart their drive into physical activity. Find what works best for them and what does not, so that they don't feel out of place or uncomfortable. Implement a plan of action that can be done with minimal to no help so that they can ease themselves into performing physical activity in that makes sense to them so that they feel comfortable. Also, develop ways that can help them stay consistent with their guided plan and help them share such information with like-minded individuals. Now, what are some other ways an individual can motivate themselves? To sum up, so far we have talked about the three main focuses of why some individuals may choose not to engage in physical activity, which were external reasoning, such as by determining their peers, financial background and location, external reasoning of the individual by determining their drive to exercise mentally, physically, and emotionally, and understanding why an individual might choose to exercise. The action plan that can be put into place is by finding out what works best for them and what does not, so that they don't feel out of place or uncomfortable. Have a plan of action where there's minimal help in performing physical activity that is also not too vigorous. With all the information that was given to you, here's a question to ask yourself. What are some of the influences that drives you as a person to exercise, and how are you motivated by it?